Good evening, everyone. In the 1950s, a lot of Americans, especially nearby Laguna Seca, particularly enjoyed racing around Pebble Beach. But quite quickly, as speeds increased and times changed and modifications happened, people realised very quickly that the beach was no longer suitable to have such fast racing action, and eventually accidents occurred. So the local businesses all got together and in 60 days cobbled together the original version of Laguna Seca, which opened in 1957. The circuit that you see now only really appeared 30 years later, this particular iteration that has played host to such incredible moments in history, such as Alex Zanardi's pass in the kart championships in the 90s, only came into fruition back in 1988. But it's a circuit that demands confidence. It demands everything from the driver in terms of attention, in terms of knowledge and bravery. And tonight, the drivers are going to have to scale up that bravery just a little bit more, because it's the penultimate round of the championship here at Laguna Seca for round 14 of the GT3 Challenge Series. And we are into the heavy knock-ins of the series now. We're just coming to the end of practice here around this circuit, which lives really strongly in the memory of a lot of people. It is a fabulous circuit in Monterey County. If you don't know where that is, it's in California in the United States. It still does, of course, host IndyCar, which has naturally evolved from the kart championship, which was obviously so popular in the 80s and the 90s in particular. But now we're here racing around it in GT3 cars, which they typically still do race around here in general. But yeah, this actual circuit, since it got repaved and redone back in 1996, 2.2 miles, 11 corners, and has one of the most notable corners in the whole of motor racing. You know, the corkscrew through turns 8 and 9. It's an infamous corner. But qualifying is about to get underway, and there we go. The flag drops for the green flag. 20 minutes in qualifying to take us into the penultimate race of the championship here at Laguna. And we've got a couple of cars already bursting to get out of the pit lane. Will Fielding leading the pack on the way out there. Mark Chapman following as well. And we also have in the Mustang just in front of us one of the debutants for tonight. That's Jan Willem Boss in the number 100 Mustang there. We've got Dennis Penders, Dan Hatton coming out. Quite an iteration, quite a lot of Mustangs in the championship tonight, especially. Ross Harris must be thinking, where have all these guys? Where have all my friends been this season? Oh, Jan Willem Boss has overcooked it through the corner and hits the side wall on the exit of turn 4. He might have to take that back to the pits, actually. So just trying to warm his tyres up and just overcooked it a little bit. But for those that are new to the championship, really lovely to see you here this evening. If you are watching, do comment. I know Mikey has put a comment in to say, yeah, I do remember. Good friend, I know it's your last race tonight. It's a good circuit, this, Mikey, so we want a good finish. We want you to not finish. We want you to finish in the top 16. That's your target tonight, Mikey. Let's hope you can run through that. But the driver's out circulating, and I want to get into one driver's effectively field of view here, and that's Will Fielding. I've been watching this guy during practice. He has been head and shoulders above everybody. But let's go on board for our lap here of Laguna as we blast towards effectively turn number 1. It is completely flat in dry conditions, but it's all about setting yourself up for turn 2. Braking just at the 300 metre marker board on the right hand side. Down into first gear for the M4 at Andretti hairpin. Nice and smooth through there. Nice throttle application. Into turn 3, just braking before the 100 metre marker. Into the right hander, nice and tight to the curb. And on the throttle once again really early. Turn 4 is a bit of a brave corner if you could try and make it. And there you go, Fielding. Attacking the inside curb. You've got to take a little bit too much. It cannot settle the car. A blast towards turn 5. a banked left-hander. You can kind of rely on the car to hook the inside of the tarmac and pull you through onto the other corner. Turn 6 should be straightforward enough, but maximum commitment, and there you go. I said it should be straightforward enough, but Fielding cracks the inside curb, and that takes him off of the lap, and that'll have invalidated his lap time. So Will Fielding will have to go again, and I wouldn't say that was the commentator's curse. He didn't do anything. I didn't do anything wrong there in particular, but that will have woken Will up. He won't have let that one fly in a hurry. He'll remember that one, so he'll have to be a little bit more cautious going on to another flying lap. But Mark Chapman's right behind him, the championship leader in the 111 Aston Martin. He'll be the first driver to set a valid lap time as Will Fielding goes again. We'll pick up with the onboard with him in just a moment, as Chappers does a 124.2. I have seen Fielding in the 23s during practice. Let's go back on board again. We're going to turn 3. Avoids the curb on that occasion. He's got to avoid the curb on the right hand side at turn 4. It unsettled the car earlier, and that's nice and neat this time from the BMW. Powers his way towards turn 5. Again, using the inside of the track because of the camber, it does hook the inside tyres in quite nicely. It gets the car rotated. Then into turn 6, and he's just got to avoid the inside curb. He took a lot of it. He was pushing, runs a touch wide, but he uses all of the AstroTurf. Then it's blind all the way up to 7, 8, and technically 8A, as it's classed as one corner, but braking for the corkscrew. You've got to be really committed to there, and he's done a lovely job through that corner. Nicely done. Car got a little bit unsettled on the exit. It'll be a little bit tighter for rainy curve than what he would have wanted, but he still got through there relatively fine. Into the penultimate corner at turn 10, another corner that dips down and hooks the inside of the camber, and then one final turn to go into first gear for the number 22, and he fires it out of the corner. The traction almost breaking the rear of the car, scrambling, and will go across the line in P1, and that's a 122.355, a full second faster than what Mark Chapman has just done on his most recent flying lap. That is a marker to stamp down to the rest of the field. I was watching Will in practice. He just seems very seamless with the way he attacks the corners. He seems to be in the groove tonight. As the only M4 in the field as well, there is no one else to really reference him to, but he has been fabulous this season. We have talked a lot about him. Let's just go through this order though at the minute. So we've got Will Fielding at the top. The only driver within a second at the moment is Mark Chapman. Then it's Chris Harris. There's Dan Hutton. Also fighting for championship honours is Dan. Zolt Barabas is 5th. Dennis Penders is 6th. We've got I think that's Matt Phillips who's gone round. Jeffrey Van Buren is 7th. There is the relatively stricken Matt Phillips. I think he's got away with not hitting the wall too hard there. 9th is Mikey Keating, and then Joe Warner was in the barrier, but he's now back in the pits in 10th. There's only 10 drivers to have set a flying lap. I think Jeffrey Van Buren's just gone a touch faster there in the 296 GT3. So he's within 2 seconds of pole, but that is an authoritative lap time from the M4 driver. He's absolutely shifting along. He's just pushed the ballpark even further away, a 122.1. He's now over a second clear of the rest of the field. And considering that Will Fielding in this championship, he is not carrying any ballast tonight. He's completely unfettered in that sense. He's got a second margin now over Dan Hatton, who's just appeared in second place. Important lap that for Dan in this qualifying session. We'll talk more about the championship fight shortly, but he's got to outscore Mark Chapman this evening by a couple of points to really give himself a good shot at the championship challenge for next week at the Nürburgring. But we've still got 13 minutes and 22 seconds left in qualifying, so anything can happen here at Laguna Seca. Still got waiting for Jacob Byford-Rue, Nick Bright, Roland Jordan, Danny Zoutenbayer, who I did see spin off earlier, Liam Watkinson, Willem Boss, and then Jamie Lee, who's just joined the session actually. So Jamie getting in there just at the end, just in time, but he's not yet set a lap time behind Jan Willem Boss, the Dutchman, in 17th place at the minute. Let's get out there on track. Let's get some alternative camera angles. Fielding to the mercy of everybody there, not setting a faster lap time. There's Liam Watkinson. He's had some good performances this season, has Liam. We have talked quite positively about him, but he had a little bit of a rough time last week at Kyle Army. One of those races where everything happened and Watkinson wasn't really involved in all of it happening in the end. But nevertheless, Liam obviously not taking part last week, which meant that he wasn't it. Whoa, as Dennis Penders loses it at the corkscrew, and where was Watkinson going with that closing speed? He must have heard me talking about him being a phantom ghost in last week's race, and he's definitely put himself. You can see the brake, the tyre tracks he left as he's hit the wall. Or has he hit the wall? Yes, he has comfortably hit the wall. He must have just completely outbraked himself into the corkscrew. That was wild from Liam. And Joe's rejoining the circuit. That's Joe Warner. I think Liam got a little bit of a scare then when the Mercedes appeared. Zolt Barabas, I was following him during practice. I was following a couple of drivers through qualifying. And Zolt, I think there's more time to come from that Nissan. I think Zolt's just trying his absolute utmost to unlock the performance from that GTR in the R35 form. But that car, again, I've alluded to this on a number of occasions. We have no direct reference to Zolt Barabas, the only GTR in the field at the minute. We haven't seen Davy Zoutenbayer for a number of races now, who's the other GTR proponent, which is a shame, really, because it would have been good to have had a direct comparison between the two of them. But the Hungarian's done quite well this season, as Zolt, since he joined. 5th place last week, of course, let's not forget. A really good performance from him. Can he continue that run of form? We'll have to wait and see. Nick Bright's still in the pits. Roland Jordan out there in there's a quintet of Mustangs on circuit this evening. What can the Hungarian do? He goes a little bit faster on that lap. That was a 125.162 as Chris Harris comes out of the pits. As Jan Willem Boss in the 100, yet to set a representative lap time. Matt Phillips coming into the pits. There's Jamie Lee pushing to the outer limits of the circuit there, just kicking up the dust on the exit of turn 10. It looks like it won't be a representative lap for the McLaren. He will come across the line and go on to a new flying lap. He's got Will Fielding just behind him, and Will Fielding, I think, has just gone faster on a 22.0. That's an incredible performance, incredible speed. Joe Warner gets a lap time on the board, a 27.345. And there's Jacob Byford-Root. Jacob, I think having a good season in that Audi. I think it's took him a little bit of time to get used to the car being one of the two R8s that have been in the field. But that Bathurst result really has been the highlight of the championship, where he finished 8th. He could have been even higher that day, but obviously circumstances left that out of his hands. Mikey Keating running in 12th. Good lap that from Mikey, actually, to be just outside the top 10 so far in the Huracan. There's Chappers, he's in 7th place. Let's get a bit of an update on where everyone is. So Will Fielding is less than a second in front of Dan Hatton, who's in 2nd place, and this is another strong qualifying effort from Howard Dunn in the AMR V8. That's a strong lap time from him. Obviously, I've talked about the South African before, not having a podium yet in the championship. Laguna Seca, if you get a good qualifying position, it really does lend itself to being an opportunity for you to secure the position you have qualified in. Lots of opportunities to defend, and a difficult circuit to overtake at as well. Well, Howard in 3rd place, much more like it from Danny Zoutenbayer. He's in 4th position. I know he's had a moment out on circuit there. This is much more like it from Danny, though. He's had a couple of races where, as he slides his way through the penultimate corner and comes into the pits as a result. A couple of races recently, Danny, where he's just had a few uncharacteristic mistakes. But that's more promising. He's the lead 296 GT3 in the field at the minute. The only other two to compare himself to is Jeffrey Van Buren and Dennis Penders. It's Chris Harris in the second of the Mustangs in the field. Second of the 5. And what can the lime green car do as it comes towards the line? And that's a nice effort. And I tell you something, I say who put a really nice effort in? Howard Dunn. Whilst I was concentrating on the other cars, Howard Dunn's gone up to second place. Now that is a really healthy lap time that he's done. He's done a 122.687. That is a tidy effort. Puts himself in front of the all Ford second row, the all Ferrari row 3. And then Mark Chapman, currently 4 positions away from his nearest championship rival for season 12. The reigning champion, of course. What can Chappers do as he comes across the line? That's an improvement for Chappers. That puts him onto the 3rd row of the grid. He's now just got himself a car between himself and Dan Hatton. Art Barabas is 9th. Roland Jordan is 10th. So the 2 Hungarian friends are together on row number 5. Then it's Byford Rue. Matt Phillips, who has gone off the road there. Then it's Jamie Lee. Then it's Mikey Keating, right involved in that battle. Then it's Joe Warner. Nick Bright is now out on circuit in the Mustang in number 36. We're still waiting for a representative effort from Liam Watkinson and Jan Willem Boss as well. Let's go and follow Jan Willem actually whilst we're here. See if we can get on board with the Mustang. He's not on a lap at the moment. Ooh, he just has a little wobble coming out of the penultimate corner. And he's just getting out of the way. Or is he going into the pits? No, he's getting right out of the way of Jamie Lee. So he's going to go on to another lap. We've ride effectively in hell. We ride obviously on board in helmet cam. Gives us the driver's eye view as he comes into the right-hander. We've got Jamie Lee in front of us. We've got Matt Phillips. I would have said lawn mowing, but it's more like sand. Ooh, a little bit wide. He's going to go into the barrier. And unfortunately for Jan Willem, that's going to be a trip back to the pits. He's still got time to set a qualifying lap. It's more like gravel and sand together on the exits of the corners here at Laguna in Monterey. It's not a surface where you can put your power down in and get away with it, as we've just seen with the Dutchman, where you can spin around so easily. On board with Matt Phillips into the corkscrew. It's 100 foot the drop down from effectively from turn 8 to 9. It's so large. And I think it's because of the way the onboard cameras show it, you actually can't see how steep it is. It actually makes it look a lot more flatter. But it is 100 foot, which is wild to think about. It's Jamie Lee just going into turn 1. Jamie up to 10th in qualifying at the minute. That's a good effort from him. It does look like the car is shimmying along. Looks like there's a connection issue there for Jamie. He's going to have to go back into the pits and see if he can resolve that. Less than 4 minutes to go in qualifying. On board with Byford Rue, who has said hello in the chat. Hello, Jacob. On the 6th row of the grid at the minute in the Audi. This is a nice track for this car. Short, sharp bursts, mid-engine layout for the Audi. So this will cater to a quick change of direction, which is exactly what's needed through the corkscrew. I think Jacob just went a touch deep into the corner, and then a little bit of oversteer on the exit will dampen any opportunity to improve the lap time, unless he can find it through the penultimate corner. In the final corner, he runs a little bit wide, and then he's got to go down into effectively first gear for the final corner. Can he find any lap time coming out of the corner? He's close to his best effort, but he won't improve. He's got 3 minutes to see if he can get off the 6th row of the grid. Will Fielding is still in the pits. I suspect the BMW driver isn't going to come out again. And I do feel that if Will gets into turn 1 first, I don't think we'll see him again for the rest of the race. Because I think in terms of the race field at the minute, I do have a suspicion that Will's probably the strongest driver in the field from leading at the front. It's not a criticism to anybody, it's just one of his strengths is leading at the front and having a gap to everybody, and he just finds a zone and a rhythm that no one else so far in the championship, this season at least, has been able to find. Chapman just building up for the penultimate lap that he will be able to do in this qualifying session with 2 minutes and 5 seconds to go. He's going to go for it now. He's got Dennis Penders a couple of seconds up the road, but Dennis is no slouch, so he won't be catching the Belgian anytime soon. We'll be chatting about the drivers' standings in a moment when we get to the formation lap. Look, Howard Dunn's still in second place. He's got Chris Harris behind him now. So Chris Harris has displaced Dan Hatton, and Howard Dunn has displaced his Bonnet, and that will be that for his qualifying. So Howard is not going to improve on second place. Hatton's got back up to 4th, so him and Chapman trading times. Danny Zoutenbayer in 6th position. Still looking to see Liam Watkinson off the road. We're not still looking to see that, we're looking to see him set a lap time. He's off the road. That looks like he's on the approach to the corkscrew. And Jamwell and Boss, who won't set a lap in the end. So the top two are done for the qualifying. Dan Hatton's just returned to the pit. So we look at everybody else now with less than 60 seconds to go in qualifying. And it is all to play for pole position. I feel like Will Fielding's lap time is almost untouchable here. Matt Phillips has gone on to his final lap. I think Dennis Penders is doing the same, as is Mark Chapman. So another lap to come from a driver in the top 5. Out the final corner for Chris Harris. He's been pushing on this lap. Will that be an improvement? Not quite. What about Van Buren just behind? No improvement from the Ferrari. So we scroll down. We look to see Jacob Byford-Rue. He's going to get across the line before the 0 timer ticks on. So for Jacob, he'll get across the line with about 9 seconds to go. And he does improve on that lap in the R8 by a 1/10 of a second. So leading the back group at the moment. Mikey Keaton's gone off the road. And that's a shame for him. That's his qualifying over. He won't be improving from 15th. For Norwal Zolt Barabas, who decided to join Mikey in protest there off the road. So the Hungarian and the British driver both out. Danny Zoutenbayer towards the line. Can he get under a second? He can't. He stays on the 3rd row of the grid. Matt Phillips, this is as close to Canada as he's going to be able to get on this game. So it's kind of like a default home racetrack for him, along with the other American circuits. But Matt Phillips stays in 14th position. Got another car coming towards the start-finish line. It looks like Dennis Penders, but he's stopping, so there won't be improvements from him. Liam Watkinson, has he been able to set a legitimate qualifying lap time? Yes, he does, and it puts him in front of Joe Warner in form of that fight. So that puts him on the 8th row of the grid. So Jamwell and Boss, the only one to have not yet set a lap time and won't do. So it's down to Byford-Rue then to set a competitive effort. Can he get near Jamie Lee for 12th place? He can't quite do it. So Will Fielding, pole position once again for the number 22, looking to find his 5th win of the season in the number 22 BMW. That was an electric pace set by him, and considering he pitted with about 6 to 7 minutes to go, he was comfortable with that time that he did. That is very ominous for the rest of the field. Howard Dunn on the front row again. So that's a strong effort for the South African. Can he this time convert a good qualifying performance? Row 2 is an all Mustang affair with Chris Harris and Dan Hatton in third and fourth. Mark Chapman in close proximity for lap time in fifth place. The third through to fifth split is just less than 700ths of a second. That's incredibly tight between those three. Danny Zoutenbayer makes up row 3 in 6th place. There's Jeffrey Van Buren and Zolt Barabas on row 4, with Roland Jordan and Dennis Penders inside the top 10. Nick Bright and Jamie Lee are on row 6, with Jacob Byford-Rue and Matt Phillips on row number 7. Mikey Keating is in 15th place, with Liam Watkinson in 16th, Joe Warner 17th, and we didn't see a competitive or representative effort from Jan Willem Boss in the 100 Mustang in 18th place. So that is where we are for the qualifying session. And it will be really fascinating to see how the drivers will be able to respond to the challenges of this circuit. A couple of people wishing good luck to everybody else in the driver's area, in the driver's room, shall we call it. But whilst we're waiting just for a moment's time, I just wanted to make a little point here before I just cut out my... I was going to say commentating for a moment. Laguna Seca, for those that don't know much about what the literal translations are, Laguna Seca actually means dry lake in Spanish. And the circuit does actually, in fact, sit on a lake bed. It's obviously dried up in millennia, but it was a seasonal lake bed many moons and years ago. So it does derive its name from a natural occurring circumstance, which is, you know, fascinating to learn about for people who've never discovered that before. But before we go into the racing action, and before I become a younger and more attractive version of Bill Oddie, I'm going to take a breather, and we will go into the race in just a minute's time.
Seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
Alright, so here we go. The race is about to get underway. We have the formation lap here at Laguna Seca. Will Fielding sets the drivers off around this relatively short track, to be fair, Laguna Seca. It's not exactly the biggest in the world, but I don't think the drivers mind that too much. You know, 2.2 miles of tarmac for the drivers to try and run around, but it's just got so much character about it. The whole point of Laguna Seca, when the changes came in, you know, the corkscrew came about by accident. They literally, it used to be a straight, but they had to change that because of how fast the cars were going and needed to navigate the hill. So the corkscrew became famous as a result of that, completely by accident, really. It wasn't designed to be that way, but there we are. Sometimes happy accidents can happen. Now, before we go into the racing, just a quick one on the driver's standings. Mark Chapman leads the way on 289 points. He's 8 points clear of Dan Hatton. Double points next week, of course, at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, so it's a big event, really, and it's an important race for Dan Hatton to try and outscore Mark Chapman just by a couple of points to give himself a fighting opportunity into next week. Will Fielding, who we're following at the minute, he's third on 262 points. It would take a bit of luck for him to have a realistic shot at the Drivers' Championship, but don't rule anything out at this circuit. Dennis Penders is 4th on 258 points. After that, those 4 realistically are mathematically in with a shout at the championship. Dennis Penders, though, is an outsider. Admittedly, is the Belgian, but again, never rule anybody out. Stuart Packham is 5th on 254 points, not here this evening. Jeffrey Van Buren is, however, he's 6th on 234 points. Jordan Harding is incredibly still in the top 10. He's 7th on 202 points, despite not having been here since round 10. Matt Phillips is 8th on 201 points, the Canadian having a great championship. Howard Dunn is 9th on 198 points, and Steve Hall sadly not able to make it tonight. He's 10th on 182. But Will Fielding has got one more corner to lead us around. Jamie Lee is in the pit, so clearly some setup changes being made to the McLaren, but Will lead us around the final corner, turn 11 of the race circuit. Polar Expression saying, I don't believe there is double points for this. John, if you're watching, you can clarify and confirm that, but we are live here at Laguna Seca, and that's a good start for Chris Harris on the inside of Howard Dunn. Dunn did not react well, and Will Fielding will be uncontested into turn 1. We have a look through. It does look as if, oh, Harris has gone round, and it looks like Chapman's been nudged a little bit, and Harris has actually managed to keep it all in a straight line somehow. And Danny Zoutenbayer's off the road. He's going to be awkwardly placed for turn 3. We don't somehow have a yellow flag. Oh, now we're going to have a yellow flag as Matt Phillips goes round. There's Ron Boss in the background as well. That's Jan Willem Boss who's gone around, I think. And that's Chris Harris side by side. And Mikey Keaton's in the wall. That's a big shunt for the 113 Lamborghini. But Chris Harris has got in front. What a start for the Mustang, despite looking like he was going to face the wrong way. And what a great start. Chris Harris will be delighted with that. He's got himself up into second place, but Will Fielding will be the most delighted of everybody. He is comfortably clear. Dunn's got that wrong. He's going to make contact into Harris. Chapman runs into the back of him. There's going to be more drama behind, I'm sure. That looks like Danny Zoutenbayer's off the road and into the barrier, and it's all going off in this opening lap here at Laguna Seca. Shock. Oh, and there's more contact. Oh, Chris Harris, Dennis Penders, everybody in the world you can think of has been involved in a huge shunt at the rainy curve. Effectively looks like Chris Harris is going off the road. Goodness me, we're going to have to get the replays open for that one. There's damage everywhere. Jacob Byford-Roos in the pits. What on earth happened there? Will Bright going off the road. That has all unfolded through the midst of drama, and that was like a domino effect from Howard Dunn going into the back of Chris Harris, and it all just went wrong from there. Then Watkinson flies off the side of the road. We're going to have to return to the garage, just get a bit of an overall shape of this race. So Will Fielding leads, Dan Hatton's second, Howard Dunn is third, then it's Mark Chapman in fourth place, then it's Jeffrey Van Buren. Danny Zoutenbayer, after being in the barrier, is sixth, Result Barabas seventh. Jan Willem Boss, who was facing the wrong way on turn 3, is now in 8th place, and he's gone from 18th position. Nick Bright is 9th, damaged severely to the front of that Mustang. Liam Watkinson's 10th. Joe Warner's 11th, but he's going to have to pit with that. Dennis Penders has been in the wars. Jamie Lee was compromised and all that. Then it's Matt Phillips. And you're looking back, Chris Hammis with significant damage. Roland Jordan's had a huge impact with the barrier. And then Byford-Roos in the pits as well. And I think we've got Jamie Lee round. Yeah, there we go. And he can't get the car pointing in a straight line. Mikey Keaton's retired after that massive impact with the barrier on the exit of turn 4. And I bet if Mikey had have just stayed in for another couple of corners, he could be... Oh, and Jamie Lee's going to hit the wall big time into the tyre stack there. And that's not going to help him. He's going to have to get that car back to the pits. But that is an unbelievable opening lap. And arguably not for the right reasons. Roland Jordan asking for a yellow flag. A red flag, rather. I mean, it was one of those areas, those conditions where everybody was off the road. But I think if that had have happened, we'd have had the call by now. So everybody continues on. I think Dan Hatton will be probably the most relieved to have come through that unscathed. It all just bunched up at the start. We're going to have to get a replay of that, and Chris Harris has got a stop and go penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That is incredibly frustrating for the Mustang driver. Joe Warner, Jamie Lee's just made it back to the pits. Byford Roos got out and had a pit stop. Oh, he doesn't want to run that wide at turn 6. So, at the minute, after lap 3, Will Fielding is in the front of the race, 5 seconds clear of Dan Hatton. Oh, and Roland Jordan's just done the same thing. It's an awful opening few laps for the Mustangs. Howard Dunn is 3rd. He's got Chapman behind in 4th place. Van Buren's 5th and Zoutenbayer's 6th. But Zoutenbayer's kind of the start of the cars you've all got damaged. So Zoutenbayer's got damage at the front and the back of the car. Zolt Barabas, I think, has damage to the back of that GTR. Just have a little look here. There you go. So there's the damage on the back of the GTR. Nick Bright's got it on the front of his Mustang. Yanwell and Boss has also got it on the front. Everybody is picking up a stop and go penalty. That's Joe Warner now who's involved in that. Liam Watkinson, he has damage. I'm fairly certain, yeah, on the front. It is a little bit like looking at a destruction derby here at the moment in the GT3 Challenge Series, because Penders has got damage, and Matt Phillips I know has got damage as well at the front. So this has all the hallmarks of being one of those types of races tonight. We get on board with Yanwell and Boss though, because despite, I can't believe he was facing the wrong way, he's up to 9th place. Ryan on board. Into the left-hander we go, down through the gears, and that's another car. He's got a stop and go penalty. And I think the driver, I think someone's knocked maybe the bollard off to tell us where they can put their foot down. We might see more of that through the race. Ooh, that was a little bit of a moment on the gravel for Boss. He just got sucked in following Nick Bright's line. And Zolt Barabas having a little wobble there at the exit of turn 2 at the Andretti hairpin. This is the closest fight in the field at the minute. We will cut back to the start. Oh, that's a big bump over the curve, and Nick Bright, he's done very well to gather that together. But that will invoke a lot of pressure now from his Mustang stable friend. I mean, this is the Mustang's home track, of course. I think Howard Dunn has dropped. I think Mark Chapman's gone off the... I could be wrong. No, it's Jamie Lee. That's what I was... Yeah, Mark Chapman has gone off the road. I thought he had... The gap between himself and Howard Dunn looked stretched out a little bit. And I think he's gone for a little trip through the gravel. He's gone a bit wide at the penultimate corner. This is not what the championship leader needs right now. He's got a back marker in front of him as well, which he really won't want. So that gives Howard Dunn a bit of a breather. We're right on board with Jeffrey Van Buren. That's another stop and go penalty for Jamie Lee. They're racking up thick and fast here at Laguna Seca. Actually, Jamie Lee's just being reminded about his stop and go penalty. My apologies. But Van Buren right now, the 187, putting the pressure on. And I think Chappers is going to be getting a little bit frustrated with Jamie now, because he's been behind the McLaren for a couple of corners, and the McLaren simply isn't moving out the way. He is being impeded. Just see if we can get to Mark Chapman. There we go. Oh, Jamie's gone wide. That's not the type of line you need through there. Will he move out the way this time? He's not really moving out of the way, I've got to say. And now he moves, but that'll put Chapman offline, and that's going to send him off the road. Chapman's just got to try and bounce the car through there, which he does. But that all came about from Jamie Lee not moving out the way. And he's still not moving. He's had a wobble through the corner, and I've got to highlight that. But Jamie Lee has had a little bit of an impact at the front of the race, and perhaps he could have moved out of the way a little bit earlier. He's going to go into the pits now. Not to be too critical of people, but I don't think Chappers or Van Buren will be pleased with that. However, to Lee's credit, He has separated the gap back out to where it was before all the shenanigans kicked off on this lap. Joe Warner's gone off the road at turn 6. We've got a yellow flag. So the Mercedes, I don't know if it's hit the barrier or not. We just scroll through the field as Matt Phillips goes off the road now. Let's just have a look at Joe's car. It doesn't look like he's hit anything. It looks like he's just had a spin. That's okay, John. Yes, the first lap we're going to have a look through at the minute because there was so much carnage is how I would describe it that we didn't actually get the chance to see what had happened. John, would you be able to confirm, do we have double points or not at the final round of the championship? We've got a couple of drivers in the pits serving stop and go penalties. Let's just take a little bit of a stop check of where we are. So Chappers is leading the closest fight in the field, which is from 4th through to 7th. We've just lost another car from the race, unfortunately. In fact, we've lost 3 cars for that matter. And Chapman comes across the line. He's leading that group. So he's got Van Buren in 5th place. Danny Zoutenbayer's there in 6th, carrying a damage. Then it's Zolt Barabas, who is sliding that car everywhere. And Liam Watkinson, despite the damage on his Porsche, is running in 8th position. He's having a great race at the moment, says Liam. I think it's Chris Harris who's one of the cars who's gone off. And Dennis Penders is in the pits. So that damage too much for him to try and continue on with. John saying there is double points. I thought that was the case. I was doubting myself for just a moment there. But Dennis Penders in the pits. I'm going to go to the replay. Let's have a look at what happened on lap 1 because it all just unfurled. And we will go back. We don't want to go through the formation lap, and we don't really want to look at Jacob Byford-Rue in the nicest way possible to Jacob. But we do need to go right the way back to the start. There was so much going off in the opening corners of the race. So let's get to a open camera. Something like that. That'd be perfect. We come into turn 2. So we see Yanwell and Boss go off the road. So we go into the turn 3. Dennis Pender's up on the curb. There's a little bit of a knock and a wiggle there. But I saw... okay, so this might explain why Mikey Keaton got fired off into the wall. No, he just lost it all of his own accord and then planted the barrier. So that's Mikey into the wall. We also saw... yeah, Yanwell and Boss was facing the wrong way. So this is what we missed. So he was fighting with Matt Phillips at the back of this train. Into the corner we go, and he's just been suckered in, and just round he goes. And that could be so easy to do. And to be fair to Boss, he got away with it. That could have been a bit more damaging for him. So, my TV signal deciding it wanted to do something else there. That's always appreciated. So Jamie Lee came out and actually avoided all of the carnage. And then it starts to go off up at the front. So we look towards... I'm going to go on board with Dan Hatton because what we saw was Howard Dunn trying to... I don't think he was attempting to make a move on Chris Harris, but it just went wrong for him. And the next thing you know, everyone's scrambling all over the tarmac here at the corkscrew. So there he goes, up the inside, just completely gets it wrong. And Hatton does so well to avoid all of it. And then what happens to Chris Harris here? Does he try and... oh, he just tried to turn in and Hatton was there. Now, whilst that was going on, all of this was going off back here. So we cut to Danny Zoutenbayer, who was off the road, but he was in the barriers. And it continues on for everybody who hasn't seen this yet. So into the corner, you can see this carnage unfolding. Chapman hits the back of him, and Zoutenbayer gets the tiniest of nudges. It's completely accidental from Chapman. He goes off. And then now we need to see what happens with Chris Harris, because inevitably Chris has gone off the road thanks to a little bit of contact between himself and Dan Hatton. trying to go into the corner. He goes onto the gravel. Round he goes. Who does he collect? Well, he collects Roland Jordan, who then gets... Zolt Barabas gets hit in the back. Is that from Byford Rue? Yeah, it is. And Van Buren somehow... Oh, and Jeffrey... So Jeffrey Van Buren avoided that. That's incredible. Liam Watkinson gets another hit. Dennis Penders is off the road. This is all unfurling here, people. We can't, like... It's so difficult to try and unravel. But it's all happening. Penders thinks, right, I'm going to go that way, and then gets hit by Nick Bright, who just ploughs into the back of him. And then it's just a scrap. And then Joe Warner hits the back of Penders. And then Chris Harris is off the road with damage. And yeah, that was effectively a disaster class, really, unfortunately. So there we are. That was that. That's what happened on the opening lap. So getting back out there. So Mark Chapman will have damage then. That's why he's been unable to keep up with Howard Dunn, I feel. He'll have a little bit of damage on that Aston Martin. And that group has now just spread out a little bit more. So Chapman is 1.4 clear of the Ferraris, who I don't think have the pace in that 296 GT3 this evening. Don't forget, Chapman also is carrying ballast after his third place finish last week. So yeah, Chapman carrying 15 kilos thanks to his brilliant results at Kyalami. The other thing to mention as well, the two debutants last week, Ellie Pocket and John Goday, not here this evening. They do want to be back racing with ACC Race Nation. Hopefully we'll see them next week, but they'll be carrying the ballast that they have from the podiums that they got last week. So there'll be a few more cars carrying back. I think Liam Watkinson's gone off the road. And Will Fielding just driving a leisurely Wednesday afternoon by the seams of it. So yeah, Liam Watkinson's gone round during the course of the lap. So Matt Phillips is up to 8th, but he's got Dennis Penders behind him. Now, is Dennis Penders trying to overtake Matt Phillips? This is what's happening in this race, is that nobody can really quite fathom where we are. Jacob Byford-Rue is back at that point in the circuit, and then Chris Harris is right behind. So we need to get on board of these guys, because the timing tower is not giving us an update. So no, it doesn't look like they are actually. They're not fighting for position. Roland Jordan's back in the pits, and Chris Harris is just trying to unlap himself. So he's going to go past Matt Phillips, which I don't think Phillips would be too impressed by, but Harris is certainly quicker than these two, as qualifying showed. So Dennis Penders is on the same lap now as Matt Phillips, having unlapped himself. Oh, Harris with a big slide, and he just about tidies that all together, but he's going to... Oh, where is... I was looking to see... Oh, and Matt Phillips has hit the wall, trying to avoid the Mustang that was sliding all over the road. And unfortunately for the Canadian, he's nosed the barrier. And for Matt Phillips, who was running in 8th place, he's just lost the spot to Liam Watkinson, and Byford-Rue having a slide. This is going to be... I did have this marked down in the original calendar to say that this is a circuit that can certainly promote drama, and it certainly has done that in the opening 18 minutes of this race. John affirming what I'm saying. Shocking. And there goes Jamie Lee, and he's going to hit the wall on the exit of turn 2. Joe Warner circulating in 13th place after his pit stop. He's going to have to move out of the way of traffic, but he elects not to. He's had a slide through the mid-corner at turn 6, and he's not moving out of the way. Oh, he's gone on the grass, and he's going to get the car just about stopped in time, and Van Buren doesn't know where he's going. Van Buren's trying to find his way through. Now he goes past, and Zoutenbayer, is he going to try and go through as well? Yes, he does. So the traffic is... and I think this is the case for all of the traffic so far, is not playing ball with the race leaders. I know that this is a difficult circuit to try and overtake on in any case. This is a wild 20 minutes here at ACC Race Nation. It truly is. And thanks to that delay from Warner, Van Buren and Zoutenbayer have fallen away from Mark Chapman now. He must be thinking to himself, okay, I'm in 4th. I've got 6 seconds to find on Howard Dunn. And Dan Hatton is only 1 spot in front of that. 2 points lost in the driver's standings isn't too much. He's got an 8-point lead as it stands, does Chappers. If it finishes as it were, he would lose 2 points and lead by 6. But, as John says, with it being double points for the final race of the championship, they only need a car between them. And if it's based off of count back on race wins, if they were to level it up on points, Dan Hatton would win the championship by virtue of his, I think he's had 5 race victories this season. Chappers hasn't incredibly had a race victory this season, but his consistency has been phenomenal. Chapman, for those that are unaware, he's had 7 podiums this season, split down by 4 second places and 3 third places. Roland Jordan hasn't left the pit, so in theory we've got 14 cars circulating here at Laguna Seca. I'm not going to say anything but at this moment in time about Howard Dunn. We've still got the pit stops to come, but he is running as the lead Aston Martin at the moment. Right on board, Danny's out by it. Into turn 3 and into turn 4, following his fellow compatriot, the 2 Dutchmen, out there fighting for Ferrari honour. I think unless there is any drama ahead, I think the raw speed of the Ferrari probably won't catch the cars in front at the minute. They have got a little bit of a gap to Zolt Barabas, and then they've got a huge gap back to Liam Watkinson, who's only just coming across the start-finish line now. That's the gap between 7th and 8th place. So Zolt Barabas, who's only 3 seconds behind these 2 here, has got a huge margin over Liam Watkinson, who looks like he's about to get lapped by Will Fielding, so that's incredibly impressive. But we're following the Dutchman, season 10 champ, of course, is Danny Zoutenbayer. Had a great season, did Danny, in that championship. He actually was again one of those drivers that won the championship without winning any races during the course of it. Of course, since then he has become a race winner of ACC Race Nation. But it is kind of amazing to think that Danny has only had 1 win in the series. He's got a championship title, would you believe, but he doesn't have more than 1 race win in the championship, which is incredible to think about. He's braked a little bit later than I think he wanted to there. That would have given Jeffrey in front of us a little bit of something to think about. I don't think he'd have been too comfortable in the car, but Zoutenbayer is looking quite strong in this mid-phase of the race here, and Chapman's gone off the road just in front of us. I saw a big kick up of dust. Let's just look at the gap. Oh, and that's wide from Van Buren. Can Zoutenbayer get it turned underneath? A little squirrel on exit in terms of trying to get the power down. They're going to be side by side into turn 1, but I think Zoutenbayer's got the lead position between the 2, and a little mistake from Van Buren opens the door for the Dutchman to move into 5th position. And that's with damage on the car as well. You could see it on the back. Zoutenbayer looking comfortable. He looked good in qualifying as well, did Danny. But Zoutenbayer making a nice overtake. And can he go after Mark Chapman here? It looks like he's already starting to put a bit of a distance between himself and Van Buren, which if he can do. Ooh, you don't want to go that wide at turn 6. We've seen a number of drivers doing that. Dennis Pender's running in 10th position. He's got nobody around him at the minute. Ride on board for a little while with Van Buren. That's wide at Rainy Curve. Gets back on circuit. Did the sensible thing and just immediately came off the throttle. Joe Warner's gone round on the exit of turn 5, and that's a little bit wide again from Van Buren, who's trying to keep up with Zoutenbayer, but I think his fellow Dutchman's gone up the road. And I think with that mistake, it'll just make Zoutenbayer relax a little bit and focus his attentions further up the field. Will Fielding still in the lead. He's not as far ahead of Dan Hatton as I suspected he might be. Don't forget, on the opening lap, Will Fielding was 4 seconds in front of Dan Hatton when they crossed the line. It's only gone up by 3 and a bit seconds since then. So, fair to Hatton, he's raised his game here to be running in second place. But it is going to take a mistake, I think, by Fielding to be overtaken on track. Liam Watkinson's still running in 9th position. It's really difficult to find out roughly where everyone is. So let's go back to this graphic here and we'll just try and get an update on where everybody is. So Will Fielding and Dan Hatton currently share the same straight. Howard Dunn is just coming into the final corner now. He's got 7 seconds on Mark Chapman, who I wonder if he's still struggling with that damage. Danny Zoutenbayer has made a mistake somewhere because that gap was about 3 seconds. It's now 4.7, and Van Buren looks a lot closer than what he did when we last followed them. Zal Barabas is 7th. Matt Phillips has got back past Liam Watkinson for 8th place. So Matt carrying that damage from when he was trying to avoid the Mustang earlier, and Liam Watkinson has decided to go, and Jacob Byford-Drew, that was synchronised drifting from the pair of them there. It was beautiful to watch. But as Howard Dunn goes past the pair of them of lap traffic. So Matt Phillips is 8th. Liam Watkinson has flew off the road, but he's in 9th position. Then it's Dennis Penders. Now these two are in 8th and 9th, do have damage and do need to make a pit stop. So I have a suspicion that Penders, who might have to pit again, considering how early on in the race he did pit, he did decide to leave it a little bit later than everyone else. Maybe he can go to the end. We'll have to wait and see. But when those two pit, I have a suspicion he will emerge in front of them. Then it's Byford in 11th, Jamie Lee's 12th, Joe Warner's 13th, and Chris Harris is back in the pits. So we've lost Roland Jordan as well, unfortunately. So we are down to 14 cars in this race of attrition, is how we will describe it. It's a little bit quiet in the driver's room as it stands, but still 33 minutes remaining. We are starting to come towards the first set of pit stops, and Dan Hatton will go past Joe Warner with no problem. Jeffrey Van Buren decides to make a pit stop. Riding on board here with Liam Watkinson. That's a significant moment in the race, that, for Van Buren to pit. Oh, that's a little bit wide from Liam. He's going to get overtaken by Byford-Drew here. And unlapped, so Byford-Drew now finds himself on the lead lap, and Chapman got that wrong. Just in the rear view. Chapman went very, very deep. The drivers are really struggling around Laguna Seca today. Everybody seemingly having some form of mistake. Zoutenbayer was 3 seconds behind before. He went up to 7 and now he's 6 behind Chappers. Zolt Barabas is in 6th place. Now we've seen Zolt sliding all over the road, even during practice and qualifying for that matter. But the Hungarian finds himself in 6th position. We talked last week about Zolt's performance. At Kyalami, where he finished in 5th place, and he's carrying on with this good run of form, just slotted in quite nicely into the championship. 6th place at, I believe, if I'm right in saying, he got 6th place at Bathurst. He was 5th last week at Kyalami. Those are results that you don't sniff at all. So Zolt is 7 seconds behind Danny Zoutenbayer, and he's 12.5 at the minute behind Mark Chapman. And I wonder if temperatures are just starting to have a little bit of a impact. Yeah, John's saying looks like Van Buren had been off-roading a little bit. Yeah, I certainly think he has. He's going off to round up the cattle, potentially, by going off the track. Now, Will Fielden, race leader, has pitted. So Will deciding this is the time to get his pit stop out of the way. I think he's probably timed it very well, actually, because I don't think he's going to have to deal with too much traffic. So that puts Dan in the lead. Howard Dunn in 2nd place, and Van Buren, has he come out right behind Howard Dunn? Because if he has Howard Dunn had a slow pit stop potentially? Or has he come out a lap down? Yes, he's come out a lap down. There we go. So Fielden, he's just made his pit stop, and look at that. He couldn't have timed it any better. Out of the pits he goes. No issues with a stop and go. He has had that back at Suzuka, let's not forget. And he learned his lesson that day. And Fielden out of the pits, no problem whatsoever. He gets the car stopped, turned around. It's a difficult pit lane, that, a difficult pit exit to get out of there without going into the gravel. It is very easy to do on cold tyres, of course, but no such problems for the number 22. So he emerges in 6th place with nobody around him, and Dan Hatton now responding to that. So he goes into the pit lane, and is this going to be Howard Dunn leading a lap here at Laguna Seca? Because I thought he was going to do that last week at Kyalami. He is going to do that this time. So the South African will lead here at Laguna Seca. Mark Chapman has gone into the pits as well. Danny Zoutenbayer joins the field, and Zolt Barabas carries on. So we're only going to have 2 cars left to make a pit stop. We'll have to wait and see if anybody else who pitted very early on, like Byford Rue or Joe Warner or Liam Watkinson, whether they're going to do another pit stop. Unfortunately, Chris Harris just hasn't come out of the pits. He's 9 laps down, but Hatton gets served. He's on his way. And Will Fielden already going past him down the main straight. There he is, blasting on by. So the man in form moves into 3rd place on the road. And Dan Hatton just coming out of the pits now. So we'll get an updated time gap on that. Now, I did say that Dennis Penders would get in front of Matt Phillips and Liam Watkinson once they've made their pit stops, and I was quite right. So Penders is now in 8th position, but he is a long way away from everybody else. Mark Chapman has come out behind Danny Zoutenbayer. Now Zout, just looking at his car, hasn't fixed his damage. So clearly for Danny, he feels he can carry that around. And Chappers has got it wrong. I did say it was hard to do that at this race circuit. Cold tyres. And Chappers goes off the road again. And the championship leader having a little bit of strife here. And that puts a car between himself and his main championship rival. Well, well, well. Howard Dunn still leading the way. He's had a couple of laps at the front. He'll be pleased with that. Barabas is in. So that will bring Will Fielden into 2nd place. And Dan Hatton has emerged about 12 or so seconds behind Will Fielden after the pit stop. So we're all living in Will Fielden's world, realistically. The performance he's demonstrated this evening has been astonishing. Joe Warner has gone off the road at turn 5. Seems to be the 2nd time he's done that during the course of this race. But it does look like the gaps have shook out a little bit since the melee at the start. Howard Dunn pits just whilst we follow Will Fielding. So there is the number 23. He's entered the pit lane. Zolt Barabas emerges not far away from Mark Chapman. He's not far away at all. Chapman's just nameplate just came through the screen there. And we'll get a little update on the timing screen in terms of where Chapman is in relation to the Hungarian. So Chapman's 4 seconds behind Danny Zoutenbayer and Barabas is 4 seconds behind him, 4.4. Joe Warner and Chris Harris are in the pits. Chris obviously has already been in there for a number of laps now. So what this means is that Jacob Byford-Rue is now running inside the top 10, looking towards his second top 10 of the season. Liam Watkinson will want that place back inevitably. Liam's still looking for that top 10 result. He came mightily close back at round 8 at the Red Bull Ring, where he came home in 11th place that day. Can he get into the top 10? That's what he's hunting for. He's shown good speed tonight as Liam. He's had so many 11th places as Liam. But we've not yet seen him grace the top 10 at the end of a race. Is it his time? He's got a bit of work to do to catch Byford-Rue. Howard Dunn's had a good pit stop. He's only 7.5 seconds behind Dan Hatton, and he's got a huge advantage over Danny Zoutenbayer. 17 seconds with 24 minutes to go. And just take his time, Howard, at this point of the race. Could be a monumental result for the South African tonight. But on board with Byford-Rue, because this is the closest fight on circuit. Forget Byford-Rue had that glorious punch through the ceiling moment at Bathurst, where he was fighting for the top 6, ended up 8th that day. But he's going to be under pressure from Liam Watkinson, who is looking more and more confident. Just cut forward to Mark Chapman. He's 2.5 seconds behind Danny Zoutenbayer. That's not over. That's Van Buren, who's gone off the road. And we cut to Liam. This is who we want to follow. Oh, a little wobble. That's a big clamp of the curb for the number 70. A little bit wide for Byford-Rue. So it's mistake and counter mistake really from these two. A little bit deep into turn 11 for the 11th place driver. Got on the exit quite nicely. And Byford-Rue now is going to have something to really try and defend from. Nice lap time that from Liam. Down through the gears into turn number 2 they go. That's deep again from the Audi in front of us. I think Watkinson can smell blood here. And whilst we've been talking, I think Dan Hatton's gone off the road. I think Dan Hatton... No. Apologies, Dan Hatton hasn't gone off the road. That was just the way the timing tower had updated. Big slide into turn 5 for Watkinson. Just got his braking zone a little bit wrong there. He has been very ambitious with his braking zones this evening, as Liam. But he is pushing the car. And if you're making mistakes like that, that means you've got a bit of confidence. Down we go into the corkscrew. Nice and tidy from Byford in front of us. Oh, 22 minutes to go. That's a huge moment for the R8 in front of us there. Just about gathered it up through Rainy Curve. And that's just inviting more and more pressure now. That's a good line. That's a really good line from Watkinson. And a bit of a squirt too early on the power for Byford-Rue. He's trying to shut the door. He can't get through, but he then leaves it open again. And Watkinson, if he can brake a little bit later using his newfound braking powers, down into turn 2. Lovely clean move. He's just got to keep the car nice and tight at turn 2. He can't quite do it. And Byford Drew couldn't get on the power soon enough. And Liam Watkinson is into 10th place. And Byford Drew bounces all over the curb and slides awkwardly through turn number 4. Loses all of his momentum, and then Liam Watkinson almost throws it into the barrier, and thank you very much as Jacob, and the roles reverse. Who wants a spot in the top 10, ladies and gentlemen? They are catching Matt Phillips as well, just whilst we've been talking. They're only 12 seconds behind him. They could both have a spot inside the top 10 if they decide to sort this out. They are also being rapidly caught by Will Fielding behind. Scrolling back through the field, Zolt Barabas there in 6th place. Dan Hatton running in 2nd. I think we've potentially lost another car here. Because Joe Warner's in 12th place. Yeah, I think we have lost another car. I'm just trying to work out who that is. Because a moment ago we had 14 cars. Chris Harris is technically not racing anymore, so it's 12. Liam Watkinson's through down the inside at turn 2. Byford Drew tries to go up the inside again. And he does maintain the position. So who cares about his retire? Let's just watch these two. Forget the rest of the race. Doesn't matter. These two are providing so much action. But Fielding moves right out of the way. Chapman is catching Zoutenbayer. That's 1.5 seconds. We will inevitably come back to that, I'm sure. Back on board with Watkinson. That's a nice place to have let the race leader through from Jacob Byford Drew there. Less than 20 minutes to go in the race. And it is all to play for. They were catching Matt Phillips. That gap's gone straight back out now, though, after their side-by-sides. Matt Phillips on for another top 10. A little bit wide from the 007. Don't forget Matt Phillips having that incredible 5th place finish back at Bathurst. Byford Drew wide again. Let's get on board with the Audi this time. Under pressure. The Audi's going to move to the left-hand side of the road. Back to the normal racing line. Didn't feel like he had to defend at that point. These two providing the on-track action for us tonight. A little bit wide from the pair of them. I've got to say that R8 does look like it's a handful. Ooh, a little bit of a mid-corner oversteer moment for Liam. Just drops him a little bit further away from Byford Drew. Might get a little breather here. And if they do finish in 10th and 11th place, I think Liam will look back to that mistake at turn 4 and curse himself. Because that should be a top 10 result for him. And in fact, you know what? I think Byford Drew's had an astonishing second sector between the two of them. He's just pulled half a second on the number 70. Still plenty of time. And speaking of plenty of time, this is an important moment in the race and potentially for the championship here. Mark Chapman is now half a second behind Danny Zoutenbayer. Oh, you don't want to go that wide, Mark. It's better to lose 3 points to your main championship rival than putting it into the wall and into the pits. Zoutenbayer squirms all over the circuit on the exit of the corkscrew. Been a tough race, this. Really difficult race for everybody involved. I think perhaps the top 3 are the only drivers who as of yet come away unscathed. Well, I say as of yet, I don't want to curse anybody in particular, that's why I said the top 3 in general. But we are coming up to 16 minutes and 33 seconds left on the clock, and Chapman got a bit between his teeth. And I think going into the final race, with a 6-point lead sounds better than a 5-point lead. He's got to find a way past out and by it. Here is a very solid drive so far from Howard Dunn. But he's still got to keep going on. Still a long way to go. Out and by soaking up the pressure for now from Chappers. Dennis Penders has had a good drive back through the field to 8th position, but that was kind of always going to be his ceiling, really, because the other cars in front of him didn't really suffer with the damage levels that he had at the start of the race. I think he's doing well just to keep the car pointing in a straight line. He's a long way clear of the fight for, well, 9th place and then 10th and 11th. There's Jeffrey Van Buren, who's less than 5 seconds behind Zolt Barabas, who hasn't been able to keep up with Mark Chapman since we talked about that gap earlier. Joe Warner's gone round. I think Joe Warner might actually be on for his best result of the season. Actually, he got 11th place at Bathurst. Must have been after penalties, I think, if I remember rightly. Liam has just fallen away from a fight for the top 10. He gets out of Dan Hatton's way and he's just going to carry on again, so he's got to find that rhythm. And Matt Phillips is on for a second top 5 of the championship. A Canadian will be very pleased with that. Joe Warner, I think, will be delighted to get 12th place considering the struggles that he has had. Again, another demonstration of drivers who have had difficulties in the race and they don't give up. That's realistically what it's all about. If people are retiring from the race, they're not learning anything. And I know that that can be really challenging to have to deal with, and it can be quite negative. But I think the other drivers would benefit from having it as a test session. Yes, they're not going to get the result they wanted, but it's a chance to learn the car. Just give them more ideas about how to push it a little bit more, develop it a little bit more, have more confidence for the upcoming races, maybe in this championship or next season, perhaps for season 13. Who knows? Byford Rue, though, still in the top 10. He's going to have to get out of the way of Dan Hatton, and he's going to have to do it in a way where he doesn't lose too much time. He's got a bit of a breather to Liam at the minute. That's a nice place to do it. Nicely timed, that, from Byford Rue. And Chappers, well, he was catching out and by. He was within a second, but that gap's gone out to 2.3. So the Aston Martin, as I said earlier, having a really tough race. It's not been the ideal race for Chappers. Nevertheless, he's still there in fifth position. And if Sautenbayer makes a mistake like that as he goes wide at turn 6, just give him a little bit more impetus to try and put the foot down. Whilst we've been talking, though, we haven't seen much of him. There's Will Fielding, just putting another lap on Joe Warner. Let's just have a half a lap with Will Fielding. I have waxed lyrical about Will Fielding a number of times this season, but his throttle and braking inputs are so incredibly smooth. Especially tonight, when I've watched him on board a number of times, he just seems to be finding a different level tonight. And that is the gold standard that everyone has to raise their game to, realistically, to challenge him. He's putting in some good laps. Dan Hatton has been matching him for lap time, to be fair. But the gap is 13.5 seconds, and with 11 minutes and 11 seconds to go, that is an uncatchable gap as it stands. Liam Watkinson has got back. Well, he had got back until he ran wide. I was about to say he had got back to within a second and a half of Byford in front of him, but then he ran wide at turn 3. Barabas is still holding off Van Buren, so I think I think everybody is just finding Laguna Seca to be a huge challenge, and I do realistically believe that because there's no real runoff areas here at the circuit, it just is giving the drivers a lot more to think about perhaps than other race circuits that the championship has visited. And that's why we've seen such attrition so far during the course of this race. This has certainly been the most retirements we've had this season. The other thing to make a mention of about this circuit, though, is the fact that while some drivers might think this is a tyre dependent racetrack, it is actually more of a braking dependent racetrack. The guys out there have to be making sure that their brakes are opened up a little bit just to allow for some cooling, because there are a lot of frequent and heavy stops at this circuit. That'll be something for the drivers to just bear in mind over the last part of this race. But speaking of the last part of this race, Mark Chapman looks like he's found his groove again, because he's got back. He's briefly within a second of the car in front here of Danny Zoutenbayer. A little bit wide though on the exit of turn 4. Down through the gears into the left-hander. Little wobble from the Ferrari in front. Less than 9 minutes to go. As we stand, Mark Chapman will lead the driver's title by 5 points heading into next week's 2-hour event at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Into the corkscrew, little bounce over the curb. That just put him offline, and that's going to cost him all the way down the corkscrew and into Rainy Curve. And then wide again on the left-hand end. Look how much time that just cost the championship leader. Ooh, that's a little bit of the wrong line realistically through there for Chapman. So back down and away for everybody he goes. And that gap just stretches out a little bit more. Chapman there's Howard Dunn. Less than 8 minutes to go. He's got over 20 seconds to Danny Zoutenbayer, and that's a lovely comfortable advantage for him to take towards the start finish line. And he goes across the start-finish line, having done 36 laps. Oh, I think Mark Chapman's gone round. I think Mark Chapman has gone around at the corkscrew. And he has indeed. He's 10 seconds behind Danny Zoutenbayer. We were just following the lead Aston Martin on circuit, and the 111 has dropped it through the corkscrew. We'll have to have a look at that. It does look like he's nosed the barrier a little bit. Yeah, there you go. He's got damage to the front of that car. 133.6. Lost 10 seconds to Zolt Barabas. So I think Chapman now will just be thinking, get it to the end. Any more mistakes will leave him especially vulnerable in the championship. Let's go to that replay. It will take us quite a bit of time to get there. Can we go? No, we can't do that. I was hoping we could do something pretty fun with that, but never mind. So sorry to Mark, but we're going to have to go through all of this. And apologies to anybody who has epilepsy, because it's certainly not going to help you out at the minute. So on the previous lap, briefly just change the camera so we've got it. In fact, I'll tell you what, we'll ride, if we can try and ride on board. There we go, that'll be perfect. So into turn 5 we go then. Let's have a couple of corners with Chapman. Into the left-hander. No dramas through that corner whatsoever. Into turn 6. Zaltenbayer goes wide. And that promotes Chapman to think, right, okay, I've got a chance here. Just need to keep putting the pressure on him. Oh, he's a little bit loose over the top of the curb. Took too much curb, bottomed out, and that's it, round he goes. And into the barrier, glances it, and then turns it, just about gets the car turned round. The previous lap I said, didn't I? Chapman had gone a little bit too much over the curb and bounced over it, and he did it then. So less than 5 minutes to go. Chappers has 6.5 seconds to Zaltenbayer, so he's got himself back into a rhythm. This is exactly what he needed to do. Liam Watkinson is still trying to find a way past Byford-Rue. They have both been catching Matt Phillips. Oh, he's just about gathered it all together as the Canadian. But that's another little mistake that he doesn't need with less than 4.5 minutes remaining. We'll field in on lap 39. And Dan Hatton running in second place. Howard Dunn's had a really great race. I could say a little bit more about it now. Oh, has Zaltenbayer gone off the road? He has! Could you believe it? After being so far clear, Danny Zaltenbayer's thrown it off the road. Late drama brings Mark Chapman, who must have thought, I'm only going to finish 5th, back up to 4th. Wow. Absolutely shocking. And look at this now. Liam Watkinson's got the bit between his teeth. 3.5 minutes to go. Let's follow that action for the spot in the top 10. He's going to try it. You don't see many overtakes into turn 7. He's going for it. He's up the inside. A little wobble and Byford-Rue gets back in front. My corrections, it's at turn 6, but Liam had to try something different. This has been the battle of the race, let's be honest. They're being caught by Dennis Penders. A little bit wide from Byford-Rue. Probably not the right line for him through there. Watkinson just got it a little bit wrong. Little bit of oversteer from the pair of them into the final corner. Looked like they had the first sign of a blue flag then. Zolt Barabas has gone round and has been overtaken by Jeffrey Van Buren. Well, it's all happening on the final few laps. Here at ACC Race Nation, Liam's dropped it almost and goes off the road, and that might be the end of his chance. No way has Howard Dunn gone off the road. Howard Dunn has spun. He's got going again. Joe Warner's, everyone's going off the road. Has everyone lost confidence in the last few minutes? Everyone's been lulled into a false sense of security. Howard Dunn has had a spin and he's now 19 seconds behind Dan Hatton. Fortunately, Mark Chapman is on the other side of the race circuit, but this is all just unravelled. He's got no damage. He's got a bit of dirt on the side of his car. This is unparalleled action from ACC Race Nation. The drivers tonight have had a real challenge. I've never seen the majority of the field have a tough race. I can only say now the top two have had no issues at all. Howard's going to have a little blemish as he goes on to what I think might be his penultimate lap there. we're going to call that a blemish. He lost 9 seconds on that lap, but he doesn't have to worry about anybody in his vicinity. And Liam Watkinson has sadly fallen away from the battle with Jacob Byford-Rue. And I say sadly because that would have been a barnstormer of a climax to what has been an eventful race here at round 14. Can you believe we've got one more week of racing action to come? At the Nürburgring Nordschleife of all tracks, 2 hours of competitive action for the final hurrah of season 12, and the championship will be decided for certain next week. But just when it looked like Mark Chapman, as Will Fielding goes on to the final lap, just when it looked like Mark Chapman was going to be under a little bit more pressure with a 5-point advantage, it becomes a 6-pointer, and that will just give him a little bit more of relief. Might be a bit of a psychological advantage for him as well. Let's go back to the garage. Is that Byford-Rue making a mistake? It is! And Liam Watkinson's gone through! On the final... Well, effectively, no way has Liam Watkinson's not gone off the road again, has he? He has! What are we witnessing here in this fight? Up and down like the yo-yo that never stops. Liam Watkinson had got past Jacob Byford-Rue, and then he throws it off the road. This is ridiculous. We're waiting for someone to finish in 10th place, and no one seems to want it. But I tell you who is having a wonderful drive and has been immaculate this evening, as these two will continue to scrap until the final half a mile, guaranteed. Will Fielding has been absolutely astonishing this evening. He puts a lap on Jeffrey Van Buren at the end. Round the final corner, this has been, for me, his most impressive race win of the season. It's win number 5 for Will Fielding here at Laguna Seca. Dan Hatton is going to take second place as Joe Warner plays in the gravel trap. But that is a good result for Dan Hatton. That's going to bring the gap down in the championship standings. And now we cut forward to this fight, because I have a feeling that it's not going to be over yet. I will cut forward briefly to Howard Dunn, because he does deserve a special mention. Howard Dunn just rounding the final corner, coming towards the start-finish line. Congratulations to Howard Dunn. It's his first ever podium in ACC Race Nation. At long, long last, he certainly deserves it. Everyone else is going to be finishing for positions. I'm watching Liam Watkinson looking like he's going to finish behind Byford-Rue after a really entertaining race for the two of them. Byford-Rue is going to take his second top 10 of the result of the season, and Liam Watkinson will be cursing his luck as he finishes in 11th again. Mark Chapman will take 4th, which about 5 minutes ago was going to be 5th place, until Danny Zoutenbayer went off the road, and he's done it again at the penultimate corner. Danny, where are you going? There's been far too much mistakes in action on track tonight. And Danny Zoutenbayer nearly finished in the pit lane. He's going to come across the line for 5th place and his best result in a while. So let's go through it. Will Fielding is your well-deserved race winner. One of only 2 drivers without a single blemish on their record tonight. He won by 12.5 seconds from the brilliant Dan Hatton. Howard Dunn, congratulations on his first ever podium in ACC Race Nation for the South African. Mark Chapman will take a 6-point lead thanks to finishing in 4th place tonight in front of Dan Hatton. So he's got 6 points going into the Nordschleife to try and hold on for a back-to-back championship. I believe he'd be the first driver to have done that. We'll have to have a look at that in a moment. Danny Zoutenbayer with probably his best performance in quite a while in the 101 Ferrari in 5th position. Van Buren was 6th. He slowed down at the end after drama. He got in front of Zolt Barabas after the Hungarian's mistake for 7th. Dennis Penders with a very solid drive through the field. I'd argue actually that Dennis was also one of the drivers who didn't make a mistake tonight. He just got caught up in that accident on lap 1. Matt Phillips with a brilliant drive to 9th position. The squabbling duo of Byford-Rue and Liam Watkinson were 10th and 11th, with Joe Warner, the last classified finisher, in 12th. We had retirements from Jamie Lee, Chris Harris, Jan Willem Boss, Nick Bright, Roland Jordan and Mikey Keating, who didn't see the end of lap 1. Jacob Byford apparently saying that he wanted to have a fight with Liam. I mean, I'm surprised you didn't have contact through it, but looking at the situation realistically right now, Stuart Packham, 3-time champion, Mark Chapman, 2-time champion. He's got the opportunity to make it 3 times to be the joint leading championship winner in ACC Race Nation. We have had, well, this is our 12th season, of course. There has never been a back-to-back champion in ACC Race Nation, so we'll have to wait and see if that can occur. We will find out whether that is possible or not. Liam Watkinson in that fight at the end, the reason why he slowed down so much was because he basically ran out of fuel. And that is that for the action tonight. Well. One more race to go. One more race to settle it at the Nordschleife. Couple of storylines really running through the championship in terms of, will Dennis Penders or Will Fielding finish third in the drivers' standings? I know that might seem like a small plot point, but Dennis Penders has had this incredible finishing record in the series, and he's finished, I believe he's finished in the top 3 in the last 4 seasons of ACC Race Nation. So, or I know he's definitely finished in the top 5. I think last season he finished in 4th place. Season 10, I think he finished 2nd in that championship. And then season 9, which is the first championship that I covered in full, I think he might have actually finished a little bit lower than that. So Dennis Penders just keeping up that consistency. We will be back though for the final round of the championship here at ACC Race Nation next week. Of course, 7:30 qualifying, a 20-minute qualifying session, which is effectively a 1-lap shootout for the drivers. Who will manage to secure pole position for the 2-hour double points event for season 12? The championship looks like it's heading towards a conclusion, with Mark Chapman looking to be the first ever back-to-back champion, or will it be Dan Hatton who can overturn a 6-point advantage? Not impossible, especially at the Nordschleife. But for me, Jack Millington, thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful evening, and wherever you might be in the big wide world, have a good one. We'll see you next week for the final race at the Nordschleife.